To create a new project on the MC-101, hit the Project button, use the value knob to find where it says New, press the value knob in, click OK, and a new project will be created. You can find different project settings by hitting Project, going to Settings, and then you can browse through the common settings like overall project level, master tuning, default first scene. There's even overall digital audio level coming from the USB that you can adjust and pan it. And then there's also color configurations that you can set the notepads to. To create a track, select an empty track under the Track Select section. Use the value knob to choose what kind of track you want to create. You have access to tone tracks, which is great for melodies and samples. There's also a drum track, which is great for percussion. There's also a drum and compressor track, which will give you 6 buses to put individual compressors on. And then there's also the looper track. So use the value knob to select one, press it in, and it will call up the initial tone, which is a simple saw wave. The MC-101 lets you use samples as tone tracks. This is useful for mapping a sample to a keyboard. To do this, select a tone track using the Track Select buttons here, press in on the value knob, and then instead of looking at presets, go to Wave File, and it will look at the contents of your SD card and see what audio files are available. If you press the sound button that's blinking, it'll preview the file. When I'm ready, press the value knob in, and it will import that sound to the tone track. To choose a sound on the MC-101, click the value knob in, select whether you want to use a preset, import a sound from a project, or to load a sample off of the SD card. In this case, I'll hit preset. And then it'll take me to the categories page where I can search through the different categories of sounds available on the MC-101. If I want to use a synth pad, I can click the value knob in, and then I can browse through the different presets that are available. When you found the sound that you want to select, press the value knob in to commit it to the track. Now, when you're using the MC-101, the sound will not change. Recording melodies is easy on the MC-101. If I want to record a melody, I can make sure that the note button is selected under pad mode so that I can play on the pads. Play the sequence, hit record, and then play in whatever it is I want to play in. I can hit the sequence button and then see where my notes are. If I hit shift and press the step of the note, I can see the properties like note value, velocity, start, and then the length of the note. So I can make changes like make that note shorter, or even put in a note change. The MC-101 lets you sequence polyphonically using melodic instruments. So if I want to sequence chords, it's really easy to record them and also edit each note individually. So I'm going to play the sequence here. Hit record, and then play some chords into the sequence. If I hit the sequence button, I can see where those notes are coming in. By holding Shift and then hitting the step, I can actually see each individual note by using the value knob. And I can make changes like velocity, start point, and length. If I hit the note button, I can see the individual notes that are on that step on the keyboard. So if I want to add a note, it adds that note to the step. In this case, it's step 7. I can also use the value knob to go to the different steps in the sequence and look at the chords, make those changes. And it's all very easy, and it's all done in real time. To create a drum track, select an empty track, select drum under the Create menu, and it will start you off with a basic 909 kit. If I want to change the sound, I press in on the value knob, press preset if I want to navigate to a different preset, go into all of the drum sounds, and then pick and choose the kit that I want. So if I want an 808 kit, I press the value knob into commit, and now it is locked to track 2. The MC-101 lets you switch out different individual drum pads to customize your drum kit. To do this, pick and choose the pad that you want to replace. So if I want to replace this cowbell, I can hold Shift, hit that pad, and then using the browser, select where I want to import the sound from, whether it's a preset from a project or from a sample off of the SD card. So I'll hit preset, and I can navigate different categories of drum sounds and find the category that I want to use. So if I want to put some sort of stick sound, click in, and then find the sound that I want to use. And then click in one more time to commit it. Now it is incorporated into the drum kit. The MC-707 has several ways you can sequence percussion. Select a drum track using the track select buttons. Press the sequence button, and you'll notice that on the display it shows the name of a drum hit. If I use the value knob, I can go and look at the different drum pads I have available. If I want to start with a kick drum, I can put in some notes on the sequencer, press play. I can move the value knob to select a different drum sound and use the sequencer to put in notes. If I want to play in notes in real time, I can select Note under the Pad Mode section, select the pad that I want to play the sequence, hit record. Now it's record enabled and the fader is blinking, letting me know that it's armed and ready for recording, and then I can play in a rhythm. press record to disable record enable, and then go to the sequence page, and I can see all of the notes that I just recorded for that pad. And here I can delete them, or hold Shift and press a note to manipulate the properties of it. I have things like velocity, start time, mute percentage, and substep available for changing. There's some drum-specific programming options on the MC-101 that's not available on tone tracks. These are things that will help you do some more interesting rhythms and come up with more interesting grooves. So I'll play this drum pattern here. Select the hi-hat. And if I hit Shift and any of the buttons, I can see some interesting things like velocity, start time, where I can nudge it back and forth, and then mute percentage and substep. These are drum-specific options that let you do some interesting stuff. Mute percentage will introduce probability to the step that you're programming it on. It basically gives a percentage that that drum hit will be muted every time the sequence is looped around. So if I take a hi-hat here and then raise the mute percentage up to something like around 50, that means there's a 50% chance that that drum hit will be muted. And I can go through each hit and put some mute percentage on all of them, and it gives me something that's a little bit more varied. It's a great method to use if I'm looping the same drum beat over and over again to have some sort of variation every time it is looped. If I wanted to add a substep at the end of the pattern as well, I can see that there's different values that I can attach to it. And then this is also nice to use with the mute percentage as well to give it a little bit more variation. And essentially the substep will split the pad into, it'll split it up twice, 3 times, or 4 times to give you faster repetitions and rhythms. There's several different types of quantize options available on the MC-101. If I hold Shift and hit the record button, it takes me to the quantize window. This is where I can say if I want to input quantize things, meaning that I'll automatically quantize my notes when I play it in real time, or I can quantize my clips after recording. There's also an option to quantize everything all at once across all 4 tracks. So if I play a pattern now, there's some unquantized rhythms happening. If I go to where it says quantize clip, press in on the value knob, I can increase the quantize percentage. And get things exactly how I want them. Then I can hit exit, and then it takes me back to the main screen. The MC-101 also lets me sequence melodies in a style that's very similar to the SH-101. So what I mean is if I go to the sequence page with a melodic instrument selected, I can hold record and then hit the starting step, and the screen will now say recording. I'll go back to the note page, and then when I type in a note, it'll advance to the next step. And I can tap in a melody this way, and also include things like ties and rests with this button right here. When you record on the MC-101, you're recording onto what's called a clip. There are different clips for each track. If I hit the clip button, I can take a look at the clip that I'm currently recording to, and also the clips that already have note data recorded to them. If I play the sequence back, I can press a clip, and transition between the two. If I want to create a new clip, I'll go to the clip screen, move the value knob to an empty space, press in, and then it's going to ask if I want to create a new clip or load a clip from a different project. So I'll create a new clip. And now there's an empty clip where I can record notes to. If I want to copy the clip to a new clip, you can see in the silk screening that there's a copy option under the effects button right here. That means it's a shift command. So if I hold shift, hit the effects button, it's going to bring me to the copy screen where I can copy everything that's inside of the clip, copy just the notes, copy just the sound, or copy the track to clip sound, which we'll get into in another video. So I can click Clip All, select the source clip for copying, press in, go to the destination. So I'll want to copy it to clip 4, press in the value, copy clip, OK. And now it's copied clip 3 to clip 4. And so this is really useful if I want to make a change to one of the notes or to create some variations. The clips on the MC-101 can be altered, changed, and customized based off of length, playback direction, and other different types of things. I can take this melody that I have here, and if I hold shift and then hit the measure buttons here, it'll go to the measure edit screen. And this is where I can see things like step length, which is the length of the clip, and I can go from anywhere between one step all the way up to 128. That's essentially 8 bars. And by holding shift, I can double or half, making it very easy to adjust in even phrasing. But if I want to do something that's a little bit more rhythmically interesting, I can pick something that lines up outside of 4/4 time. So if I want to make a 2-measure phrase, I can select 32, click in, and if I keep going, I can also see things like the scale of playback of that clip. So if I play it, it's now twice as long. And if I change this, it'll play back at 30-second notes. Quarter note triplets, 8th note triplets, 16th note triplets, or if I go back to the other side, I can have it play back in 8th notes. So altogether, that sounds like this. There are some creative things that you can do with clip playback on the MC-101. If I look at the measure edit screen, I can adjust things like step length, scale, but if I keep going, I can look at things like playback direction. Now under mode, it says it's playing back forwards. So if I play the melody, it's playing back normally. But if I click in and change that, it'll now play the melody in reverse. I can do a pendulum motion, inverted playback, or randomly select different steps to play back. This is really great for things like live improvisation or coming up with variations or fills for whatever sound that you're working with. This is also where I can see the shuffle as well. So I can shuffle the clip while also having the shuffle value different for each track and the instruments that are playing back. So if I go to the drum kit here, go to the measure edit setting, I can see that its setting is set to 0 for shuffle, and I can change that. And it gives me a much more organic type of groove, especially if I have a bunch of instruments playing back at once. I can come up with some really organic sounding music that way. The MC-101 lets you control 4 different control knobs at once. Each of the control knobs are tied to an instrument. The buttons here will page between the different functions of the control knob. So if I click sound button here, it's going to alter the things that are assigned to track 1, track 2, track 3, and track 4. If I hit filter, it's going to go to a different page where each track will have its own dedicated control assigned to it. So in practice, I can play the pattern, and then I have this arpeggio happening. And on the filter page, I have track 3's control knob assigned to the filter cutoff. But if I go to a different page, say page effects, it's now controlling system control 4, which is a dedicated routing attached to the sound. Same thing with the mod page. And this is useful if I want to control different aspects of the sound for different instruments at once. The control knobs on the MC-101 can be reassigned very easily. I can select the page that I want to reassign the control knob for, hold the button down, and it'll show me what its current assignment is. So C2 is assigned to octave shift, but I can move this and control different aspects about the sound, and it'll lock to that knob. So for this example, I'm going to keep it at octave shift, play the pattern back, and it lets me manipulate that assignment. If I go to a different page, I can also hold that button in and change the assignment just like the previous page. The control knobs on the MC-101 can be reassigned very easily. I can select the page that I want to reassign the control knob for, hold the button down, and it'll show me what its current assignment is. So C2 is assigned to octave shift, but I can move this and control different aspects about the sound, and it'll lock to that knob. So for this example, I'm going to keep it at octave shift, play the pattern back. And it lets me manipulate that assignment. If I go to a different page, I can also hold that button in and change the assignment just like the previous page. The MC-101 and the MC-707 have something called Motion Designer. This is essentially a way to create automation automatically for your control knobs. It's almost like attaching an LFO to a control knob, but it records it as motion data onto the sequence. This means that I can edit different aspects about the motion data after it's been recorded, so in some ways it's more flexible. To get there, I'll hold Shift, hit the mod button, go all the way to the right where it says Motion Designer. I'll click in, and then it asks me what waveform do I want to use for the Motion Designer, and there's a couple options here. I'll use the sine wave. It asks me the step length, meaning the speed of that LFO or of that shape, and I'll do something maybe a little bit slower. And then it asks me what the minimum and maximum value is that I want to assign to it. So for this purpose, I want to make it drastic, so I'll just leave it at its default values. Now it also asks the destination knob, and this is where I can choose, do I want it to affect the sound knob, the filter knob, the modulation knob? I'll pick mod because I know that there's an octave shift parameter attached to that. And then go to execute, click in, and I'll play the sequence back. So now it gives me this sine motion as automation recorded onto the sequence. And I can, like before, look at the data, and I can see that it's populated. And even if I click through, I can see the value of the knob there, but I can also make changes. The MC-101 has a real-time manipulation tool for the sequencer called First and Last Step. To get there, hold Shift, hit the sequence button, and it brings me to the first and last step page. I'll play the arpeggio that I have going here. And as soon as I press a pad, it now loops this range. If I hold Shift, it adjusts the start point. And this will wrap around too. So I don't need to press them in order. And this is a lot of fun to do because it's all in time with the tempo, but it's giving me all these interesting changes and repetitions that I can use for fills or something. But if I want to get rid of it, I can hold Shift, hit the project button to clear it out, and it clears the first and last step there. So, in context, I can real-time manipulate it. And it's a lot of fun to use. The MC-101 has a select amount of options available for editing the sound and the preset that you're working with. I'm going to take this sound here on track 3. Hold Shift and then hit the sound button. Now I'm in the tone edit screen where I can look at settings or the effect that's tied to it. So if I go into the settings, I can see things like the overall level of the patch, panning, delay and reverb sends, and other aspects of the sound. Like I can quantize, or I can change the chorus or fine tuning. And then I can also change it between monophonic and polyphonic type of behaviors. Things like legato, pitch bend range, portamento time, all of that's available in the tone setting. It also provides an amplitude envelope here. So if I wanted to change the attack of it, I I can do that. The ranges here are bipolar because every sound on the MC-101 is a little bit different. So having the controls being bipolar allow you to be more flexible. It means that I can take pad sounds and increase the attack substantially, or take lead sounds and really spread out the attack so that it turns into something entirely different. So going forward, I have decay and release at my disposal. There's also vibrato, rate, depth, and delay. Things like octave shift, velocity sensitivity if I were to hook up an external keyboard and use it. And there's also voice assign limits, so if I know how many voices the sound I want will take up, I can free up the voices to be used in other instruments. There's also more granular options like bend mode and then unison as well. If I change it from tone to on, it'll attach a unison effect to the sound. There's also system control options, and there's 4 of these available. These are also able to be assigned to the control knobs. They're essentially predetermined routings to affect the sound. Every sound on the MC-101 has a predetermined routing of the system control. So those could be things like pulse width modulation, LFO, vibrato rate, or all sorts of stuff. So it's really something that you want to explore the sounds and not just go by what it sounds like when you first call it up, but using the system control options lets you kind of discover what the sound is capable of doing. It's a lot of fun to use, especially if you assign it to the control knobs as well. And then going forward, you have the pitch bend amount, which you can also attach to a knob to do manual pitch bending effects on the MC-101 without an external keyboard. To put an effect on the sound that you're using on the MC-101, hold Shift, hit Sound, and then go to Multi-Effects. Now you can go between the different types of effects that are accessible on the MC-101. There's things like choruses, delays, distortions, all sorts of stuff. If you find one that you like, click the value knob in, and then go to the parameters attached to that effect. So I can attach a little bit of drive to this instrument here. There's also things like tone. And then overall level. There's really a lot of options available because each effect has a different set of controls and things that you can change. Some of them are pretty in-depth, like there's even a multi-band compressor, or there's even a mid-side compression algorithm that does some stereo and mid compression effects, which I think is really cool to have access to, especially if you're working with some interesting samples that you're importing onto the MC. You can also manipulate the drum pads on the MC-101 individually. So here I have a pad sound loaded onto pad 11 here, but I want to manipulate it and change it. So I'll play the pattern. And then I can go to Shift Sound, make sure pad 11 is selected, click the value knob, and then I can change things like the level. Maybe I can turn it down a little bit. Panning, delay and reverb sends. I can also attach it to a mute group as well. And then I have things like key offset, which is really good for melodic changes. And then I can also use an individual filter for each of these drum sounds. So I can take off the high end a little bit. And then let's change the release of it. So it becomes a little bit more of a background pad type of effect. And there's also other things too. I can also attach an EQ for each of these pads individually. So if I wanted to take off some low end of this pad, I can turn the EQ on. I have the low gain here, turn that down. And then if I scroll forward, I can change the frequency of the bands that I'm working with. The MC-101 has an instrument type called drum comp, which gives you 6 individual buses, each with its own individual compressor. This is really good if you wanted to start producing your drum kits within the MC-101 and gives you a lot of helpful mixing control. So I have a drum pattern here that uses the drum compressor instrument type. And if I want to send this instrument to a compressor, I can go to Shift Sound, make sure Pad 10 is selected, press it, and then navigate to where it says Output Assign. Now here it's telling me that it's going out of the multi-effects, but if I start to go over, I can access these individual compression channels. So if I set it to Comp 2, that means that this will go out of the second compression bus. So if I exit out and then go all the way to the right where it says comp, I can select that compression bus, turn it on, and make my adjustments here. There's a lot of flexibility with the compressor as well, plenty of control. And it's perfect for giving things a certain amount of attack or transient control if you're dealing with different types of sample material. The MC-101 uses a track type called looper track. This is really useful for importing different types of audio loops or samples and having them repeat and time stretch with the tempo of the MC-101. So to create one, click an empty track, go to Looper, click in. Now you want to import a sound off of the SD card. So I'll go to Wave File, go to a loop that I have, and I can press Sound to preview. So there's kind of a top end type of percussion loop. Click the value knob. So I'll play back the pattern. And there's my loop right here. Now, since it's audio, I can do some creative things like go into the looper settings and reverse. And it keeps it in time. I can also look at options like the time stretching algorithm that's applied to it. I can even change the character of the time stretching. I have creative things like pitch shifting. So I can really color the sound and stretch it out. And then there's also chromatic pitch shifting that I can do for more melodic stuff. And there's also things that I can do with the sample as well. I can adjust the start and end point. I can also look at the measure, which is useful for stretching it evenly within a certain amount of measures. Meaning if I select 2, it's going to compress that loop so it plays back in its entirety over the course of 2 measures. So it doubles the speed, and likewise if I go to 8, it'll stretch it out to play at twice the length and basically half speed. The MC-101 has master effects that you can apply to the mix out of the unit itself. This button right here will turn it on and off. If I press it so that it's lit, it's going to turn on whatever effect is applied to the project that I'm working with. So to see what effect is selected, I can hold Shift, hit the multi-effects button, click multi-effects, and I can see the name of the effects here. So right now I see that there's a lo-fi compressor attached to it, so this is more of a creative effect. And if I play it, I can hear that it's active. These knobs here can be assigned to control different parts of this effect. So if I hold this button, move a knob, I can see that I can change it to be different types of parameters. So if I want to have the right knob control the balance, it'll let me have control of that parameter in real time. One pretty standard effect that people use is the filter, which we can navigate to. Multi-mode filter. And then if we want to change the assignments here, I want to have this control the tone, and then this control the color. I'll turn it on. And essentially it gives me a nice type of master filter effect that I can use for transitions. Also in the master effect chain are things like reverb settings, if I want to adjust the global reverb, delay, where I can adjust the delay. And then there's also a master compressor that's useful for mastering types of effects. If I press it, I can turn it on. And then it actually gives me a multi-band compressor that I can use to balance not just the dynamics, but the frequency of those dynamic adjustments. And it's a really easy tool to use. If I'm just looking for a simple compressor though, one trick that I like to do is go to where it has the split low, turn that all the way up, turn the split high all the way up too. So now the low compressor essentially acts as a single band compressor, and I can do some more traditional type of compression effects. I can lower the threshold. Here it starts to get a little bit squashed. Can also adjust the knee of the compressor as well to give it more of a gentler effect, and adjust the makeup gain. So it's a pretty drastic type of effect right here, but just for demonstrating it, here's what it sounds like bypassed. And here's what it sounds like on. Now if I keep going, I can also adjust a master EQ. And this is really great if I want to just do some overall mix EQing, and it gives me multiple bands to work with. The MC-101 has a really useful feature where I could save a sound for each individual clip using only one track. So on track 2, I have this arpeggiator sound. I can take a look at the clip that it's playing. It's playing clip 1. Now if I go to clip 2, it turns into a pad. Now clip 3 has a sample that I brought in. So this is useful if I want to expand the type of song that I'm creating and get some more variety happening. So let's take a look at how to do that. When I look at the track settings, I can hold Shift, select the track, and the first option that it gives me is sound source. Sound source is basically what it sounds like. Where is the sound coming from? I can select track, which is usually the default, or I can select clip. Selecting clip will look to the clip that I create for the sound source that it will trigger. So leaving it at clip, I can create a new clip, create one on clip 9, new clip, and I'll go to the note page and it says initial tone. It's basically giving me the standard initial waveform. Now I can select a sound, select a pad, select this kind of soft pad here, commit it, and let's make the measure, let's say 2 bars. I'll record something. Now I'll go back to the clip page and I can see that that clip is playing on clip 9. And I'll change to clip 1. The patch changes. Essentially, you can do this for every single track up to 16 times. That gives you a massive amount of variety that you have access to. You can change things like synth patches and drum patches as well. You can change the drum kit as the song is progressing, and it's all saved within the project. When working with clips on the MC-101, you can save clips in a specific configuration, which is known as a scene. Scenes are useful if I want to recall entire song sections and basically change multiple clips at once. To get to the scene selection, I hold the clip button and the screen says select a scene, and I have 1 through 8 scenes available. So if I press scene 1 in this project, it'll play the pattern back. And when I'm ready to transition to scene 2, I can press scene 2. And you can hear that there are some clips being brought in, some clips being brought out, and I can progress the song. If I want to save a scene, I can select the track that I want to change, select a different type of, a different clip, and then press and hold the clip button, press and hold the scene that I want to save it to, and it stores it. So I'll go to a different scene, and then I'll go to scene 4, the one that I just saved. You can sample directly into the MC-101 using digital audio through the USB connection. Simply connect a laptop, make sure that the MC-101 driver is installed, and then select the MC-101 as a sound card. Here I have a Eurorack sample that I want to record onto the MC-101. So to do the recording, create a looper track, hold Shift and hit the record button, Go to the record source and select PC. I'm going to set it to, let's say 2 measures. Go back, hit record, play the sample, and then play the MC-101 to start recording. So now that sample's been recorded into this track. And I could do all the things that I'm able to do with a regular looper track, such as pitch shifting, reversing, sending it to reverbs and effects. When using looper tracks on the MC-101, you can resample the tracks that you have onto a looper track. So to do this, create a looper track, hold Shift and hit the record button. Normally this is the Quantize view, but if you keep going, you can see the recording page, and it shows me what the source is, so I can change it between things like the USB for real-time sampling over digital audio. I can look at individual tracks or the mix out. I'll do the mix out for this example, and then it'll also show me how many measures do I want to record for. Let's say I want to do 2 measures. I'll go back, select the clip that I want to record into, press record, and play the sequence. So now I've turned down the volume of the instruments that we're playing, and now I have that sample recorded onto the looper track of track 4. So from here, I can also do creative things like pitch shift, or maybe play it in reverse. So if I always have this in reverse, I can fade up the rest of the instruments and then maybe use this as some sort of fill. The MC-101 has a performance effect called scatter, which lets you do things like mix and mangle the audio playing back in real time, and also do some really interesting pitch shifting and really drastic types of effects. This is really great to use if you want to create transitions, maybe some interesting loops. You could also use it as a source for resampling by just resampling the output while you're doing a scatter effect. It's definitely a fun thing to interact with. The button scatter here will take you to the scatter page where each of these pads are a different type of effect. So if I play the sequence, I can see that there's a different effect on each pad. Some of them are subtle, some of them do reverse types of effects or pitch shifting. Some of them do kind of this chopping, pitch shifting type of thing, but it's important to know that all of these can be completely customized. So if I want to customize the effect that's on this pad right here, all I need to do is hold Shift and hit that pad. Using the value knob, I can look at the different options available for the scatter setting. Like if I want to reverse it, I can turn reverse on. Or if I want to do things like adjust the retrig amount, which will re-trigger the audio all the way up to 16, nope, all the way up to 32, which will re-trigger the audio based off of the sample time that you have selected under the size parameter. So what that sounds like is if I press and hold and increase the retrig amount, I get more re-triggers happening. And if I leave that there, I can also see how that interacts with the different parameters in the scatter section. Hold will also hold the scatter buffer that it's repeating over more steps. So that sounds like this. You can also use the retrig glide amount to have an increasing number as it retriggers. This works best if I turn the retrigger up to a higher number and then start to manipulate this control. Turning it to the left will give you slow down types of effects. And then turning it to the right will speed up. And like I said before, if I change other aspects of the scatter setting, it's going to have a related effect to everything else. I can also do things like change the pitch. There's so much flexibility here that it's just a lot of fun to see what each parameter does and then come up with some really interesting effect chains that you can use during your performance. To delete a track on the MC-101, you want to use the clear function. You can see clear is in silk screen under the project button, which means it's a shift command. So hold shift, hit project, and while holding those, select the track that you want to delete. I'll delete track 1, select OK, press the value knob in. Track 1 is now deleted, and I can create any kind of track I want in its place. The notepads on the MC-101 can be transposed to a different key. To get there, hold shift and hit the note button. It'll give you a transpose option where you can click in and then offset it to whatever key that you want. You also have negative ranges here too. To save a project on the MC-101, hold shift and hit the tempo button. It'll bring you to the naming page where you can name your project something unique. Using the measure arrow keys, I can go to the different letter places, and then using the value knob, I can select the letters or numbers that I want my project to be. I can also hold shift to jump between categories of capital, lowercase, and numbers to make it easier to navigate. And then when I'm ready, I can press in on the value knob, select OK, and press the value knob one more time. It'll write the project to the SD card, and it will be there when I want to recall it after I'm done using the MC-101. To recall the project, hit the project button, select load, and I can see that it's there on the SD card. Press value, click OK to load project, and it will load. To change the tempo on the MC-101, hit the tempo button, click in, and then make your changes here using the value knob. If I want to make fine adjustments, hold Shift, and it'll give me a finer resolution for the tempo. To access the system settings on the MC-101, you want to use the utility window, which is accessed by holding Shift and hitting Filter. Select System, and you have options that will let you do things like control the knobs based off of direct or catch behaviors, trigger sensitivity of the pads, different types of effects routing for your USB audio, a lot of stuff here. Anything to do with MIDI settings will be found in this page, whether I want to change MIDI channel settings, enable or disable MIDI reception, and all sorts of stuff like that. So this is definitely a page if you want to configure your MC-101 to work with other gear, you want to visit this page just to make sure that you have everything configured correctly.